Right, okay, well done for making it this far through the Surds module. We're going to have a look at our last video on Surds, which is to rationalise these harder fractions here. Again, grab a piece of paper. I'm going to go through some examples, some for you to have a go at. So do make sure you've got a pen and paper and you're making some examples on these. So this first question, rationalise the denominator of this fraction. Now, on the last video we looked at rationalising the denominator, although that process isn't going to work for this one. So we're just going to have a quick look why it doesn't work. So before, we identified what root was on the bottom, and we times the top and bottom by root 5. Now if we did do this, and this is not going to work, but if we do this, if we times the top and bottom by root 5, we get 3 root 5 on the top, and on the bottom we have to times both those pieces, so we get 2 root 5 minus root 25, which is 5. Okay, so we still end up with this surd on the bottom, okay, we've still got this root 5 down there. So this process isn't going to work. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to have a look at the process we're going to use for this type of question. Okay, so we are going to have to times by something slightly different. Now if we think back to algebra, there's this situation in algebra where we're expanding a double bracket and the numbers are the same. The numbers are the same, but the symbols are different. One's positive, one's negative. It's called a difference of two squares. When we expand this, we get x squared minus 2x plus 2x minus 4 at the end. And when we simplify this down, these two cancel each other out. So we only end up with x squared minus 4. Okay, so we're going to apply that same logic to this question. So we're going to apply the idea of using the opposite symbol in the bracket. So let's have a look. Now on the bottom of the fraction at the moment, we have 2 minus root 5. So I'm going to rewrite this over here. 3 over 2 minus root 5. So I'm going to times the top and the bottom by what's on the bottom here, but I'm going to change that minus, that negative symbol, into a plus. So I'm going to times the top by 2 plus root 5. I'm going to times the bottom by 2 plus root 5 as well. Again, we've got to times the top and the bottom because we're making an equivalent fraction, but this pairing here is going to eliminate the surds in the middle, and we'll see why, and there's a bit of a shortcut we can take once we know this. So multiplying the top out, 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times the root 5 is 3 root 5. And that's the top sorted. Now on the bottom, and this is the only time I'm going to do it this way, but I'm going to show you how to start off with this. So we've got a double bracket, let's write it separately. We've got 2 minus root 5, and we've got 2 plus root 5. And this is what we need to expand for that denominator. So we have 2 times 2, which is 4. Then we have 2 times this root 5, which gives us 2 root 5. Then we have negative root 5 times 2, which is negative 2 root 5. And then root 5 times root 5, one being negative, so minus 5. Now when we tidy up the bottom there, these two cancel out. And then we end up 4 take away 5 on the bottom. So we have 6 plus 3 root 5 on the top. And negative 1 on the bottom. Okay, so normally what I'm going to only actually do is this part of the multiplication. The first 2 times the root 5. Sorry, the 2 times the 2. Not that bit, let's get rid of that, not that branch. The 2 times the 2. And the last one we did, which is the negative root 5 times the positive root 5. Because I know those two ones in the middle are going to cancel each other out. Now, this is quite an interesting first one to look at because we have negative 1 on the bottom. And if we divide by negative 1, it's almost the same as dividing by 1, but it's going to flip the signs of the numbers on the top. So actually I can simplify this further. 6 divided by negative 1 is negative 6, and that positive 3 root 5 turns into negative 3 root 5. That's quite an interesting one there to start off with. When you do get negative 1 on the bottom, we can actually get rid of that denominator completely. Okay, let's have a look at another one. Okay, so 2 over 1 plus root 3. So I'm going to times the top and bottom by 1 minus root 3. I can always write that down, 1 minus root 3. Okay. So on the top, expanding it like a single bracket, 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times that negative root 3 is negative 2 root 3. I'm going to take a bit of a shortcut now on the bottom. Let's put this in a bracket over here. So I'm going to do the first one, 1 times 1. 1 times 1 on the bottom is 1. I'm going to miss out the middle 2. I'm not going to do the 1 times the negative root 3. I'm not going to do this root 3 times the 1 because I know that they're going to cancel each other out. That's the whole reason I've done this. So the last one I need to do is the root 3 times that negative root 3. So root 3 times negative root 3 is negative 3. Okay, so again we end up with a negative number on the bottom. So let's simplify this down. On the bottom now we have 2 minus 2 root 3, and that's all over negative 2. And again, this is quite an interesting one as well. If we just get a positive number on the bottom here, we don't have to really worry about this, but there's something we can do again, because both of these numbers here, the 2 and the 2 root 3, both divide by 2. And it's negative 2, so it's going to flip the symbols. So 2 on the top divided by negative 2 is negative 1. And the negative 2 root 3 divided by negative 2, or negative divided by negative, is going to make that positive, flips the sign again, and that's just going to be 1 root 3. So negative 1 plus root 3. We could write this in another way as well. Okay, I could swap these pieces round to avoid having so many symbols, so I could write it as root 3 minus 1. Both mean the same thing, but two different ways of writing it. And let's have a look at one more. Okay, so 3 plus root 2 on the top, 1 minus root 2 on the bottom. So I'm going to times the top and bottom by 1 plus root 2. And I'm going to times the other one by 1 plus root 2 as well. Okay. Right, so we've got a double bracket on the top and the bottom this time. So slightly different to the last question. We've got a little bit more going on the top. I'm just going to have to take this nice and carefully. So on the top, we've got 3 plus root 2 multiplied by 1 plus root 2. And on the bottom, we've got 1 minus root 2 multiplied by 1 plus root 2. Okay, so hopefully finding the bottom bit is quite nice and simple now, because we do take a bit of a shortcut. We only have to do the two multiplications. So actually I'm going to start at the bottom this time. I'm going to do 1 times 1, which is 1, and the root 2 times the root 2, which is minus 2. Okay, on the top, can't have any shortcuts on this one. Okay, it's not like my difference of 2 squares example. I've got no shortcuts, so I've got to do all 4 multiplications. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times root 2 is plus 3 root 2. Onto the underneath, root 2 times 1 is 1 root 2, and root 2 times root 2 is 2. There we go, now we just need to tidy all this up. We've got the 3, add the 2 on the top, so 5 on the top, and then we've got this 3 root 2 and 1 root 2, which makes 4 root 2, so 5 plus 4 root 2. On the bottom, 1 take away 2, which again gives us negative 1. So again, 5 and 4 don't divide by anything other than 1, but we can simplify this because it's just 1 on the bottom. So again, dividing by negative 1 flips the signs, we get minus 5, and then swap the sign again, minus 4 root 2. And there's our final answer. Okay, so you're going to have a go at a few. Here they are. So pause the video there, have a go at these 4, and I'll go over the answers in a sec. Right, okay, here we go. So, times in the top and bottom by 1 minus root 2 for this one. And on the top, we get 3 minus 3 root 2. And on the bottom, we get 1 times 1, which is 1, root 2 times the root 2, which is minus 2. 1 minus 2 is minus 1. So we get this little situation here where we just need to flip the symbols on the top and swap that over. So let's get rid of that and write it to the left so we've got some space. So flip the symbols, we get minus 3 and plus 3 root 2. There we go. And again, you could swap those round just to get rid of some of the symbols, but it doesn't really matter. So we have 3 root 2 minus 3. We could write it like that as well. Onto the one below. Times in the top and bottom by 1 plus root 5. So 1 plus root 5 and times by 1 plus root 5. So on the top we get 2 plus 2 root 5, and on the bottom 1 times the 1 is 1, the root 5 times the root 5 is minus 5, so 1 minus 5 is minus 4. Now, this is quite a nasty one actually, because both of these numbers on the top actually divide by 2, and so does the bottom. So we could actually get rid of the negative on the bottom. We could do this in 2 steps really. If we divide the top and bottom by 2, we get 1 plus 1 root 5 over minus 2 dividing the bottom by 2 as well. Okay, so we could actually get rid of that negative symbol, but because the top two numbers now don't divide by 2, I'm just going to leave that as it is with negative 2 on the bottom. Over to the next one. Right, so timesing the top and bottom by 1 plus root 3, and timesing by 1 plus root 3. Let's see what we get. So we've got a double bracket now, so on the top we get 2 plus 2 root 3 plus 1 root 3 plus 3. Just doing my normal way I just expand my double brackets there. And on the bottom we get 1 minus 3. And if we tidy all that up, 2 plus 3 is 5, 2 root 3 and root 3 is 3 root 3, 1 minus 3 is minus 2, so over minus 2. There we go, and there's our final answer. And on to the last one, timesing the top and bottom by 2 minus root 7, 2 minus root 7, and let's see what we get. On the top, 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 times root 7 is minus 4 root 7. Onto the root 7 times 2 is 2 root 7, and root 7 times root 7 there gives us minus 7. And that's all over 2 times 2 is 4, minus 7. So just tidying that up to finish it off, 8 minus 7 is 1 on the top, minus 4 root 7, add 2 root 7 is minus 2 root 7, and 4 minus 7 is minus 3. So there's our final answer for the last one, 1 minus 2 root 7 over negative 3. Right, let's have a look at some more. Some slightly harder ones here, purely because we've got this little 3 in front of the root 2 now on the bottom, but we're going to take the same process. So I'm going to times the top and bottom by what's on the bottom there, but flipping the sign. So I'm going to times the top and bottom by 5 plus 3 root 2. And then again 5 plus 3 root 2. So 2 plus root 2 on the top, multiplied by 5 plus 3 root 2. And then on the bottom we have 5 minus 3 root 2 multiplied by 5, I don't want to put the multiply in there because I'm speaking it as I say it, multiplied by 5 plus 3 root 2. And then again just take this nice and slow, so 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times 3 root 2 is 6 root 2, root 2 times 5 is 5 root 2, and root 2 times 3 root 2 is 3 root 4, or 3 times 2, again you can write that slowly, 3 root 4, which is 3 lots of 2, which is 6. And there's the top, and then the bottom I'm going to apply that little shortcut, so 5 times 5 is 25, and negative 3 root 2 times positive 3 root 2 is negative 3 times 3 is 9, root 2 times root 2 is root 4, so it's minus 9 times 2, which is minus 18. And then we just need to tidy that all up. So the 10 plus the 6 on the top is 16. The 6 root 2 add the 5 root 2 is 11 root 2. And then 25 minus 18 is 7. And then neither of those simplify, nothing on the top divides by 7 there. So that would be our final answer for this one. So we've not got any negatives on the bottom this time. Let's have a look at one more. Okay, so similar process. Why is this one harder? Let's have a look. That root 8 there, that's not fully simplified. So again, it's completely up to you at this point. We could simplify it first or we can simplify later. It really actually doesn't matter. So I'm going to just choose to leave it as it is. I'm going to simplify later. Okay, so we'll times the top and bottom by what's on the bottom there, which is 5, but flip the sign, minus root 8. And the bottom, 5 minus root 8. Okay, so on the top, we get, and let's write this out, it's a little bit clearer if we write it out, it gets a bit messy up there. So 3 plus root 2 times 5 minus root 8, and on the bottom, 5 plus, did this on the bottom last time, 5 plus root 8 multiplied by 5 minus root 8, and then let's multiply that. So 3 times 5, 15, 3 times negative root 8 is negative 3 root 8. Root 2 times 5 is 5 root 2. And root 2 times negative root 8 is negative root 16. 2 times 8 is 16. And that is going to give us a whole number there, which is quite nice. That is going to be the whole number. Let's write it in now. 4. So we can forget about that. Okay, on the bottom, 5 times 5, 25. And then root 8 times root 8 is 8. So 25 minus 8. There we go. Let's tidy it all up. Now, one thing I'm going to have to do before I tidy this up is maybe simplify this 3 root 8 here so that it can combine with our 5 root 2. So 3 root 8, I'm going to do that to the side. I'm going to do it here. 3 root 8. Ignoring the 3, the root 8 is root 4 times root 2. Root 4 times root 2 is 2 root 2. And then again, reintroduce that 3. 3 lots of 2 root 2 gives us 6 root 2. So on the top there, that's going to be 6 root 2. And now we can simplify it. So 15, take away the 4 at the end is 11. 6 root 2 add the 5 root 2 gives us 11 root 2. And on the bottom, 25, take away 8 is 17. And there we go. 11 plus 11 root 2 over 17, final answer. Okay, let's have a look at these two. Okay, so there's 2 there for you to have a go at. Have a go, pause the video, and then we'll go over the answers in a sec. Okay, here we go. So times in the top and bottom. On the first one, by 3 minus 2 root 3. And the same on the bottom. So on the top, 4 times 3 is 12. And 4 times negative 2 root 3 is negative 8 root 3. Moving on to that root 3, negative root 3 times 3 is negative 3 root 3. And negative root 3 times negative 2 root 3 is going to give us positive. Let's write that down, this one here. We get 2 root 9, which is 2 times 3, which is 6. So plus 6. All over. 3 times 3 is 9. And 2 root 3 times negative 2 root 3 is going to be negative. And again, let's write the working out down for that. Do it up the top. 2 times 2 is 4. Root 3 times root 3 is root 9. So that's 4 times 3, which is 12. So 9 minus 12. Okay, simplify that all down. 12 add 6 on the top at the start and the end. 12 add 6 is 18. Negative 8 root 3 minus another 3 root 3 is minus 11 root 3. And that's all over 9 take away 12, and 9 take away 12 is minus 3. Okay, so there's our first one. 18 minus 11 root 3, 11 minus 3. And on to the last one here, timesing by 2 plus root 8, and timesing again by 2 plus root 8. On the top, 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times root 8 is 5 root 8. And then root 2 times 2 is 2 root 2. And root 2 times 8 is root 16. Again, I'm going to just remember that that's 4. And on the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. And the last two, root 8 times root 8 gives me, and one's negative, so minus 8. Okay, so on the top, 10 plus the 4 at the end is 14. 5 root 2, oh that's not. We need to sort that one out as well, don't we? That's not a root 2. So 5 root 8 I need to simplify. Let's do that at the top. So 5 root 8, ignoring the 5, that's root 4 times root 2, which is 2 root 2. And again, reintroduce that 5, so that is 10 root 2. Okay, so we can write that down as 10 root 2. So we have 10 root 2, add the 2 root 2, which gives us 12 root 2. So 14 plus 12 root 2. And that's all over 4 minus 8. 4 minus 8 is minus 4. Okay, now we could actually do a little bit of simplifying here. Both those numbers on the top divide by 2, and so does the number on the bottom. So if we divide everything by 2, we get 7 on the top plus 6 root 2 all over -2. And there we go, there's our final answer there for that question. Okay, I've got one more question for you to have a go at. Here it is. Okay, so pause the video and we'll go over this one in a sec. So this final question, it says, show that this can be written as 4 minus root 3. So let's see what happens. Hopefully you've already had a go. So we're going to times the top and bottom by 2 minus root 3. So we have 5 plus 2 root 3, which we're going to times by 2 minus root 3. And on the bottom, we have 2 plus root 3 times by 2 minus root 3. Okay, so on the top, 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times minus root 3 is minus 5 root 3. On to the next piece, 2 root 3 times 2 is 4 root 3. And 2 root 3 times negative root 3 is definitely negative. Let's just work that out separately. 2 root 3 times 1 root 3, so 2 times 1 is 2. Root 3 times root 3 is root 9, so it's 2 times 3, which is 6. So we have minus 6 at the end. And on to the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. Root 3 times root 3 is minus 3. So we just get 1 on the bottom. So let's tidy up the top. 10 minus 6 is 4. Negative 5 root 3, add 4 root 3 gives us minus 1 root 3, which we can just leave as root 3. So 4 minus root 3, all over 4 minus 3, which is 1. And if it's just 1 on the bottom, we can just get rid of that. And that could be our final answer. Right, brilliant. So some slightly different questions there. That's the end of Surds. If you'd like any more on this, just please let me know. And if you're enjoying the videos, obviously please like, please comment, please subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.